Welcome to another live stream. Organized stalking vampires. Well, some people might think it's ridiculous. There are a lot of individuals out there who focus on the government experimentation, on very logical conclusions for these things. Involving maybe narcissism and narcissistic supply, which would actually fall into that category. But there's multiple reasons why people do these things. And one of the things that was actually out there, I'm not going to mention the channel, I'm not going to mention the individual who was talking about this stuff, but this has come up before, and it's usually connected to things that almost make it sound ridiculous. Like the reptilians or something like that, which I'm not saying that there are not kernels of truth to some of the genetic experiments and so on and so forth that went on back in ancient times, specifically the Genesis 6 account involving the things listed or referenced in the Dead Sea Scrolls, primarily in the Ethiopian Book of Enoch. But that's not really where I'm going, okay? Because when you get into that whole mythos, what I'm referring to specifically, in case you're not following me, involves the half-breed angelic and human hybrids who, after the whole issue of the flood and so on and so forth had passed, that several things had changed. One of them was they were not able to breed the same way. Okay, there was in other words, the Most High had put a barrier. Okay, along with the fact that their lifespans had been shortened. And when you go into that whole thing, you're talking about the heroes of old and so on and so forth. That these beings, which are now, according to the Dead Sea Scrolls, the sirens of men or unclean spirits. So in other words, when you're talking about people being possessed, by and large, you're referring to these hybrid entities who became disembodied after they had died, after the flood. They were actually in the earth after those days. But they lived longer than humans. But the thing is after that whole thing happened, the lifespan, not only of man changed, but as far as they were concerned, the same thing happened. Even when you get into some of the stuff involving the gray aliens and, a lot of these alien abductions and I believe these people are experiencing something genuine. Whether or not they are interpreting it correctly, I don't know. Because the mythos around this is that those grays, rather than being people or beings from somewhere in the galaxy who have traveled here, that they are actually a type of genetically created oikotarian for these disembodied spirits to inhabit. Now, when you get into the whole thing of demonic possession, you are dealing with these spirits inhabiting people, right? And then the Bible's very clear that they find rest. And Jesus talked about the individual who, when the house was swept clean, the house is an individual, similar to the vessel referenced in the Bible. And the spirits are cast out, or the demon is cast out, that it goes out into waterless places seeking rest, and it does not find it. And then it ends up hooking up with other spirits that are out there in the astral plane or whatever, and they go back to that individual, and they because Christ is not there, because that individual does not have the Holy Spirit, they go back into that individual. Okay, and so the basic premise is that they are looking for something to inhabit. When you get into the gray aliens, there is a mythos involved in that they're trying to figure out ways to preserve the bloodlines that go back to Egypt, even when you get into the secret societies. And I've talked about the infrastructure that targeted individuals and the whole world are basically dealing with, from the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Rosicrucians, and up into the Committee of 300, the Council of 33, the Scottish Rite, the banking system, the Royals, which, when you really get into that, involves different lineages and so on and so forth. I've talked about the destiny philosophy that they have. And a lot of targets are dealing with those things where, they're not only are they having deja vu, or they're having dreams that seem to be, precognition, or they're dealing with street theater, not only with personal information, but things that haven't happened yet. They get into witchcraft, or they get into these, even the false prophet. I've referenced Deuteronomy 13, but getting into it, and God will allow that, by the way. Getting back into what I'm saying is that what they did to preserve their life and mental faculties, according to that mythos, was that they would, similar to the stuff we hear about with the adrenochrome conspiracy, that they would drink human blood, and that would somehow help maintain not only the mental faculties, but the life force needed by these. And I don't know if it's true. That's, like I said, it's the mythos around that whole thing. I'm not necessarily going into that. Okay. But I have to explain what I'm talking about, so you know where I'm going with this whole thing, because a lot of targets, and like I said, there's someone famous out there talking about this, the loosh and, the lower vibrations. I referenced that on the last live stream, but I didn't really explain myself fully. And so we're going to go into that, is that, when you're dealing with targeted individuals and all the harassment that they deal with, supposedly, even when you get into the child trafficking and some of the things that happen out in the Epstein island and so on and so forth with the elites, supposedly, and you have individuals breaking these things down, and that there are entities that feed upon the suffering, upon, those lower vibrations that are produced through despair and depression and fear and so on. It's kind of like that movie, Dr. Sleep. If you guys have watched that, very interesting. It's like a culmination of The Shining. But these beings, these individuals are traveling around basically like spiritual vampires of sorts, and they steal the life force through tormenting these individuals. And so the whole theory is that when people are tortured, when they are harassed or maybe scared or whatever is going on, like the adrenochrome conspiracy, where they horrify the victim and then they extract the blood, right? And somehow they get this rush and other things speculatively out of this whole thing. I don't know if that's true or not. But the loosh, the loosh farm theory has a bit of a contradiction. And I mentioned that in the last live stream. What is that? Well, when you deal with the individuals involved in the occult, or involved in Satanism, or involved in organized harassment, or all the above, they seem to be having a pretty easy time, right? They don't, it's like Psalm 73, and I've referenced that before. The heart of the servant of the Lord had almost failed when they had witnessed the prosperity of the wicked. Their families are fine, their crops are fine, they don't have afflictions, they don't have diseases, they lived seemingly without any problems, and they usually live quite a while. And if you see the landscape out there, that is part of the environmental tyranny that targeted individuals deal with, in the sense that you can't find justice for you, and of course things aren't working out for you. A lot of smart aleck comments go out to targets. How's that working for you? Especially if the target is a Christian or a believer. And then the whole insinuation is that, they'd have been better off a Satanist, which is ridiculous. But the thing is it seems to be a contradiction, because why? Well, if they have given themselves over to these individuals that are seeking this loosh or whatever, supposedly, living off this, and there could be different types of beings that feed on that kind of thing, because there are different types of spirits. But the thing is, why would they? Why would they? If they're supposedly devoured and assigned over, subjugated over to these things, over the dark side, whatever. How come they are able to keep their sanity and all this other stuff, which is interesting? Because the thing is, and I've seen this, and I don't know if I'm right about this. This is just a speculation, by the way. This is for entertainment and educational purposes only. And I've seen this firsthand. I'm not kidding. That if they don't do something to torture their victim, whether it's some kind of a narcissistic relationship, whether it's a gang stalking scenario, whether they are involved in the occult or something like that, if they don't go out and get their bounty, when I've talked about people speculatively being assigned to you, some of those long con infiltrators and honeypots and other things that you'll deal with, that they do feed on them. I've seen that. And it's creepy. I don't know if I'm right. And it's like, if they don't go out and do their little dirty deeds and participate in harassing someone or getting them to do something evil or promoting false, doctrine or, lies or some type of darkness, that they start to be tormented. And so, you have to process that correctly. Is it true that it's kind of like a loosh farm? I don't think I would look at it that way. Here's my point. When you look at, the Dead Sea Scrolls and other things, and I've talked about targeted individuals and basically the whole human race as being a type of commodity, even when you look into some of the things that happened, in ancient times, supposedly that for the transgression of whether it was some type of higher being or a human, that there would be a type of depletion of life force. There would be a type of penalty in there. And we know that when you get into the scriptures, it talks about the devouring, stealing and killing and devouring and so on and so forth. Why would they be after people? Why would the kingdom of darkness go after someone if there was something they couldn't get? Right? There's that whole debacle about eternal security and so on and so forth. And of course, at that point, you're in a straw man argument, because in order to do that, which Augustine ran into that problem, you have to conflate salvation with an event like maybe baptismal regeneration or something like that. And of course, people will, they will leave the faith, or they will depart, or so on and so forth. They will go back in apostasy, as referenced in Hebrews chapter 6, where it talks about the sin of the Hebrews up around that area, where they would go back to the temple and go back to the old system, and therefore putting the crucifixion of Christ to an open shame. And they were partakers. They saw the miracles of the apostles and so on and so forth. And that's why Jesus said, you have to hate your father and mother more than me, which is a Hebrew idiom, and that they had to believe in the carpenter from Nazareth, the Messiah, and so on and so forth. And that, that whole act of going back to the Old Testament and not believing the truth, of course, they can't be renewed to repentance. A lot of people will take that out of context because they'll think it's just sin, period. And if I sinned, now it's too late. Well, that'd be ridiculous. That'd be a horrible salvation program. But getting back to the point is that, you have these different things involved in the scriptures. You have different things involved in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And not only that, but when you get into the whole motive of the spiritual dimension of going after humans, that there's a reason why they do it. You're a commodity. People are deceived. They're taken into darkness, so on and so forth. And a lot of people are persecuted. And the thing that I've referenced many times that, as a target, you're kind of like the bait. Yes, they are coming after you. They want to break you down. They want to devour you as well. They want to convince you of certain things, lies, disinformation, demoralize you, make you hate God, whatever. But the individuals involved in this whole thing, they would be like the vampires, right? They would be the ones, and I've seen it. It's like they get something out of it, right? And I've seen before some of these individuals, and I've talked about some of the groups that I hung around with in my earlier days that were into this stuff. I didn't know what was going on, and sometimes they would be very agitated, and it was like they had to get me to do something. And they would all, it's creepy to say something. It sounds insane, but until they would do something evil, until they would torment you or trigger you or get you to do something that you're not supposed to do, it's like they had no rest. And then it was even beyond that, to where once they triggered me, even in workplace scenarios, and I would get frustrated, I would have a reaction. And it was like they were feeding on it. And some of them, and I'm not making this up. Good fruit. I'm all about the low hanging fruit. And they would say things like that after they, would trigger me or harass me at work or stalk me. And I've seen this stuff in many different examples. And it was like they were getting something out of it. But, is it really that they're feeding on loosh? I don't know. For me, I think that, with the possibility of human beings being created in the image of God and having that opportunity for eternal life, that once individuals are processed, and there is a way that can happen. I've talked about the exponential takeover of the kingdom of darkness on the planet. Even infiltrating the churches and everything else. We've talked about gang stalking in church. We talked about a lot of these things. And like I said, if there wasn't something they could get, they wouldn't go after it. And even when you get into the story of Daniel, Gabriel had to have help from Michael the archangel because the prince of Persia was preventing him from getting through. There is warfare in multidimensional levels. There are things that we don't necessarily have all the information about, but we do know that there is devouring. We do know that there is stealing and killing and destroying. And we know that these individuals that are coming after targets are very motivated. They want to freak you out. They want to dysregulate you. Some of them will infiltrate the lives of targets. We've talked about the Stasi techniques before, of how some of those people married their targets. I mean, it's horrifying to think about the extent of this whole thing. A lot of targets will talk about the long con, where individuals will infiltrate their life. And it seems normal. And then all of a sudden, when all the stuff starts happening, it's like they didn't think that they would turn on them as well. They trusted them. Maybe people in your family, maybe your best friend or whatever. And it's sad to see that people can be turned that easily, that people can be manipulated. But it's also even worse to think about someone who has snuck up on you, who has planned malevolently this whole thing out and literally, been stalking and hunting you in a different way. But if I had to give my opinion on it, I don't necessarily think that I could be wrong, feeding on the loosh, but they are getting high from their handlers, and their handlers, of course, all that interest comes due at that time that those individuals who have subjugated or given themselves over, that possibility of eternal life is worth something. They get something out of it, peace or something. I don't know. They get high. Who knows? You have to speculate. It's a devouring of something. And when they do these things to targets, Well, they seem to be getting a boost out of it. Some of these people are sadistic, and it doesn't apply to all the situations out there. We've talked about some of the things that, speculatively people are getting out of this. And some of it is a lot more rational than some type of spiritual vampire. Some of it's money. Some of these things are involved in the social structure, right? Where people, they're part of that. And there's always a scapegoat. There's always a way to manipulate someone, and it's all about herd mentality and everything. And so if you can use that type of example of using a scapegoat or a vessel of wrath, and it's everybody gets a little bit of a boost out of it, and so people move up in the hierarchy, or it creates conformity. There's also the thing involved in experimentation and getting data and learning how to control people ad populum. I'm not going to deny those things. So it's not always about some kind of spiritual vampire thing or some kind of loosh farm or something, because there are things that are more logical out there that exist. But it's creepy when you get into, even the hierarchy of the secret societies. A lot of people are looking at the Epstein files right now. And by the way, they just dropped a ridiculous amount of them, which could be more of an overflow technique. If you guys know what I'm talking about, we went through, I don't know, a fairly small number of them comparatively to the ones that were just released. And it took quite a while to go through them. And so, now it's more of a wave of, or a deluge of information. And sometimes the powers that be will use that to confuse people and distract them. But we do have a link. Excuse me. I'm going to get something to clear my throat here. And I would like to hear your story or your example of what we've been talking about, whether it's a sadistic, narcissistic supply, or whether individuals in your mind are literally feeding on people as they are stalking and harassing them. I'm going to go in and see. We have someone back here. No swearing, no mentioning of other channels, no promoting of any of their religions but Christianity. Welcome to the live stream. Are you there?
I am.
And do you have something to share, or do you have an example of this type of activity involving dysregulating targeted individuals?
Okay, I have some examples. By the way, my name is chosen the last few times. That's my name right there. That's my first name, last initial. Anyway, how are you doing, Dr. De Facto?
I'm well.
Good. So, I'm kind of a pragmatist. I mean, it's kind of outside my wheelhouse. A lot of the spiritual stuff. I'm not negating it or denying it or anything like that. But it's something that I haven't really focused on too much in my life. I've been more of a empiricist, a scientist, a psychologist, sociologist, social psychologist, things like that. But anyway, there is a phenomenon. I can't remember what it's called now, but there is a phenomenon where people do actually simply feel better about themselves, their lives, their situation, et cetera, when they perceive the suffering of other people. So it could be something that's seemingly innocuous. It's just merely feeling better about themselves. Let me give you an example. So they like to, emotional vampire is a really good term. I like that one. I was at a place a couple weeks ago, and I'll never forget. I like music. Music is like my thing, and it really makes me feel good. It's always there for me, and I can enjoy it without it turning on me, and it's always the same. And it's just it evokes emotions, especially memories that that are distant now of my real life and all that. But I'll never forget. I was out there and I was listening to an Eagle song, and there was a few people around. We were doing like a car wash or something like that, and there was somebody that was had turned on me and was kind of running the radio, and I was singing and dancing to the song, which I do, and he just shut it off. almost as if he just couldn't handle the fact that I was really enjoying myself by myself, in and of myself. He just had to shut it down.
So you perceive at that point, as you've illustrated, that when so in your I think that's valid, because if you're having a good day, that other people, that they're not as happy as you, it creates a sense of incontinuity. Is that what you're talking about?
It is, and again, it's as simple on the flip side. It's as simple as people perceiving people. It's like someone perceiving somebody who's more of a sinner than they are. Even though they may be a sinner to a certain degree, they can justify and rationalize and minimize and all that other stuff, their own sinful nature, if they compare and contrast themselves to a more sinful, quote unquote, more sinful entity or being or person. So it makes them feel better. It makes them feel better in comparison to something worse.
So they want to take people below them in the lateral comparison framework to elevate themselves.
Exactly, because you can be as low as you can go and still find something lower and feel better about your low position, no matter how low you go. I mean, sleeping on the sidewalk, who hasn't showered in weeks, strung out on drugs or whatever. I mean, there's always something you compare yourself and say, well, you know what? At least I'm not that.
Right.
And there is another thing with people. I don't know if it's narcissism or sadistic, but people. Okay, so my smear campaign consisted of something like an atrocious thing. So the way that they're treating me, turning off the music, calling me names, all the other games that they play to rip apart your ego, your self-esteem, take your joy, steal your positive emotions. Those are all justified, I think, simply by the fact that you were given a label, whatever that label is. But it's obviously bad enough to have an environmental tyranny for me, to a great extent, which is like, wow, everybody that walks by me has a look of contempt, a look of anger, a look of sadness, and it's like when they get in proximity, they just their positive emotions just shut out, and they become real hostile or real, like, I don't know, it's weird. But,
hold on a minute. Don't you? Yeah. I mean, is that something that you would look at as their spiritual life kind of shining through at that point, that they are really being manipulated by spiritual entities and dysregulated?
It could be empty vessels being filled with demonic energy. It could also be people with simple, fragile egos, low self-esteem, false pride.
Yeah, but you're not. I mean, well, hold on a minute, because you could be in the proximity of these people and not jumping around whistling Dixie, and they're still going to do that to you.
They are, because they've demonized you.
Okay, well, but there has to be some type of manipulation going on and influencing them.
That is true. And as you mentioned earlier, it's probably multiple factors. The primary cause is probably the evil one himself. That's my theory. I don't have a lot of proof of it, but we know there's a lot of other entities involved, especially in the manipulation, the gaslighting, the street theater. Let me say this. In retrospect, for the last 12 years, every single person, every single situation that I've experienced in 12 years has been artificial. So I've had, for example, at least 40 or 50 honeypots. 40 or 50. I haven't been really intimate with a woman in 12 years, because they've all been weird, inexplicable, bizarre situations that just fizzled out.
Well, that's okay. Well, hold on a minute, okay? Because that has to be something more than just them wanting to elevate themselves above you in the lateral comparison framework. There's got to be something more going on. And by the way, I want to ask you something else. Did I hear someone yell paranoid in the background, or was that just...
No, that was you being paranoid. No, I'm just kidding. No, nobody said paranoid.
I thought I heard that. Okay, I thought maybe there was some... I thought I heard somebody messing with you. I didn't know.
No. Trust me, if they were, I can take care of it nowadays. After 12 years, my skin.
All right, okay, but you said that... Hold on a minute. Okay. You said that your life has been so afflicted. In other words, you have so much environmental tyranny concerning this type of activity and you speculate that it could be something like people trying to just elevate themselves above you in the lateral comparison framework, but you can't even have a relationship, and that seems to be something more than that.
Everything is like the Truman. Everything has been the Truman Show, literally, for 12 years for me, and I didn't know it.
There has to be more of an explanation than just them trying to elevate themselves in the lateral comparison framework.
They're trying to kill you by 1,000 cuts. They're trying to destroy you with plausible deniability, as you mentioned earlier. I mentioned
right. So there's got to be something more malevolent going on than just them being jealous of you.
No, they're trying to destroy you because you've been labeled something below the human level, probably. They probably look at you as less than a human being. Maybe they look at you as something demonic or something evil. I like to joke around and say, I'm the manifestation of pure evil. That's how they treat me. Like I am this, I'm like pure evil incarnate. That's how the reactions I get from people sometimes. It's insane. It's like, what the hell could I have possibly done to create this much antagonism and hatred and anger, So I don't know. All I know is that once you're demonized and you're at a low debased level, and just about everybody and their mother can put themselves above you, all bets are off for you. You're going to get messed with by just about everybody above ground, and probably others.
Okay, so your spiritual alignment is at the base level of that, isn't that correct?
My spiritual alignment is very high.
No, my point is you're a believer, and so if you're going to get harassed, that has to be, that's almost demonic. Is that correct?
It is, because they're picking on somebody that has all. Let's say I can say this. The way that I've been framed, the way that I've been labeled, the way that I've been portrayed, it's probably because I'm just deferring. I'm just inferring or deducing by the way I've been treated, some of the directed dialogues, some of the directed conversations. So I've inferred a lot of stuff over the years, a lot of the subtle stuff, a lot of the plausibly deniable stuff, and I basically realized that everything they think about, my attitude towards people, by all of a sudden, it's completely 100% wrong. Because you got to remember, 99.9% of these people have never even met you before. So all they're doing is projecting onto a blank slate. They have no idea who you are. They've never heard you utter a word. So if they're just labeling a body that's walking around without having them say anything, they can't read their thoughts, then you can become anything. And what's interesting is I'm like the exact opposite of what these people are expecting me to be.
Okay, well, hold on a minute. I have to interject here, because you said that these individuals were using directed conversations with personal information. Is that correct?
Yeah. Well, yes, because the accusation. So the overall accusation has a theme, and the theme.
Okay. Well, they must. Okay. Well, they're either being manipulated or they have information. Is that correct?
I don't know what kind of information they have. It's probably a combination of both. They're being manipulated and they're being fed partial, exaggerated, and false information.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, but otherwise they wouldn't be able to pull that off, right?
No, and they wouldn't be able to demonize somebody as much as I've been demonized, scapegoat, or however you said, to the degree that I've been, without having some really heavy-duty fabrications going on about who I am as a person, what I did, et cetera, et cetera. But I have to be a pretty bad person.
We're having a bit of an issue with the background noise, and I'm going to ask you this, and I appreciate having you on. That next time you come in, you cannot be around an area where we're going to have so much background noise. Would that be okay of a request?
Yeah, that's fine. I don't think.
Okay, because yeah, it's not productive, but I'm going to give you, there's other people in the back room, and I appreciate you coming on.
Okay.
I'd like to have you as a guest. Is there anything else you'd like to say before we go to the next individual?
Just stay strong. This is the thing. I had a lot of external validation growing up until I was 42 years old, 12 years ago. After that, I've had no compliments. I've had no positive feedback. It's all been negative. I went into this thing with high self-esteem, high self-regard for all of my characteristics and stuff like that. So I've been able to stay strong based on facts that I accumulated for the first 42 years of my life. So I try to keep that in focus and just sort of ignore all the negative BS that these people are propagating against me.
Okay. All right. Well, that's good, and I appreciate you coming in. We'll have you again,
Thank you.
and we're going to have someone else come in here. And welcome to the live stream. Hello.
Good afternoon. Good afternoon.
Well, I think we're past the afternoon now, but
Good evening.
yeah, I think we're past the afternoon. Great weather out here in the Central Mountain. And do you have an experience that you'd like to share with us, or do you have something on the topic of the spiritual vampire of the organized harassment scenario?
Yeah, so sorry about that. Something that's kind of come to light recently is, so I at my workplace, they recently hired, well, I can't say recently, maybe about a year and a half ago, they hired a custodian. And keeping in mind, I'm from New Mexico, which is a primarily Hispanic state, but they hired this custodian, and this custodian has a swastika tattooed on his neck, and he does shave his head every day. I'm not going to necessarily say he's a skinhead, but there's a chance he probably is. My understanding is that he did relocate from Texas, so chances are he is. But anyways, and that's not to say people from Texas are that way, but there is a portion of Texas that's known to harbor these kind of individuals. But regardless, what I've noticed is this individual has started, like I would say within the past 6 months or so, has started infiltrating my routine, which is when I like to go take a break at a certain part of the building, he's there. Not every time, but more often than not, he'll be in the area where I usually go take a break. And what I've noticed is, for example, one of the things I like to do is go read the daily newspaper. Well, at a certain point, he started showing up, taking the newspaper, and then he would be, pretending to be reading it. Well, the reason I know pretending is because I decided to actually take out one of the other papers, not the usual one that I like to read, which is the one that he had. And I sat down at another chair where I could perfectly be angled to, have eyes on him. And what I noticed was he just gazed over each page. He wasn't reading. He was just gazing over each page roll like for a few seconds, and then on to the next one, and then flip the page, and so on and so forth. And then when he got to the very end of, the second half of the newspaper, folded it back up and, proceeded to put it away. But point being was that he didn't read anything. I mean, he didn't even look at the comics. And what I noticed is it's all about just trying to get into your routine as well. That's what these people try to do as well. So when you do develop a routine, they will infiltrate. So just a heads up to the TIs out there, but I think most TIs have already started to realize that, throughout your targeting, is that when you have a routine, they will infiltrate it. And it's to really get under your skin, to try to make you upset, to aggravate you, so on, so forth. So I guess the point being is try not to be such a patternistic individual. Try to break it up as much as you can.
Now you could actually use that to your advantage, though, couldn't you? I mean, if you wanted to find out who was involved, you could just pretend like you're following a routine and see who they were, right?
I suppose, but I've also come to realize at a certain point, in my targeting that I mean, whether you want to say that this is actual telepathy going on with people or synthetic telepathy that's being given to these people via V2K technology,
Yeah.
I just know that sometimes when you want to try to counter some of these people because you're thinking in your head, right? I mean, come on, you got to think it throughout. You got to think this process out throughout your head, right? What you're going to do, how you're going to counter these individuals,
Somehow
and
they
so
know,
on.
right? Somehow they know.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Bingo. And the latest thing I've started to notice is as soon as I take my phone out to start recording, and even though they're not privy to the fact that I'm taking my phone out to start recording, I'll notice a shift in their behavior immediately. They stop doing whatever they're doing that prompted me to take out my phone to begin with to record.
So it's even deeper than that, you're saying.
Bingo. They just
Okay.
know some way somehow to hinder their behavior once they know
No,
that
I
they're
agree. No,
under
that a
some
lot of
sort of
targets, yeah, a lot of targets will talk about
observation
that.
that can record it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
because
it's really
they try
strange.
to get information or they try to get evidence, and it's like, and I've done that too, even with security cameras. A lot of targets will talk about it, and they will change their behavior, exactly like you said. And I think you have even mentioned that, just on a spontaneous, trigger that you wanted to go out to a fishing spot or something, but it's almost like they're waiting. Is that correct?
Yeah, oh yeah, yep. Exactly. It's
How
a
do you
trip.
explain
It's a
that?
trip. You can't, exactly. I mean,
My
it's obvious
God.
what's going on. At that point, you know what's going on. I mean, when it happens too many times
Yeah.
and a pattern has made itself obvious, I mean, it's well known at this point, something's not right. It's like we're not in Kansas anymore, Toto.
What do you? Okay,
Something's
so
weird.
that's a good example, and I remember you told that story, and I'm not going to give the details of it, but it was almost like they were tempting you at the same time, just kind of agitating you out there. You just wanted to go out and have a relaxing time in the country, and so what do you
Oh
think?
yeah.
What do you
Mhm.
think they're getting out of it? What is there some kind of a? Is it are they getting some kind of boost out of it? Are they getting some kind of energy? Are they getting money? What do you think it is?
Well, I mean, ultimately, I think it's to try to get a reaction first and foremost out of you.
But it's more.
Um,
It's got to be more than that. It's got to be. They've got to get
well, well,
something.
well, yeah, first and foremost, right? At the surface level,
Well, yeah. Well, they have to
that's
get the
what we see.
reaction.
Yeah,
That's
but
like if they were
and see,
hunters, that
well,
would be the yeah.
here's the thing. I don't. We can't always just judge a book by its cover. Sometimes you can see a person that has the nicest smile, and they can even be all dressed in white, all in white from head to toe. But underneath that facade could be a Satanist
Well,
or a
that's the worst. Yeah,
Luciferian,
that's the worst one.
exactly. You get what I'm saying? Bingo, because you're not expecting it when you see somebody that's portraying themselves to be something like as a person of the light or a person of a good
Exactly.
of a good nature or with a
Right.
good smile or good intentions, et cetera,
Right.
et cetera. But you get the point. So the point being is you got to always be a little bit apprehensive with who you're going to be mingling with because you just don't know who's who, especially
No,
these
that's
days.
true. The thing you illustrated. So not only you said try not to be too predictable, but at the same time, not react. Because it seems to me, and I think you're onto something, is that if they don't get that reaction, it's like they don't get the contract. They don't get the reward unless they trigger you. Is that what you're getting at?
Bingo. And there's
Okay.
also other individuals who have talked on this topic and have discussed that if a perp doesn't succeed on the daily mission that they were supposed to do, then apparently they also face repercussions as well or
That's
consequences.
exact. That's a good point because I've seen that. Because it's like they get tormented. It's like they're feeding on them or something. Like there's some kind of spiritual thing going on. I don't know if I'm right, but I think, but yeah, because they're very motivated to do it, aren't they?
Bingo. Yeah, something's pushing them.
Oh my gosh, it's horrifying. It's horrifying. Rather than to believe, like I said earlier, that they're getting some kind of a vibrational, feast off of the individual. Maybe there's something going on. I don't know. I'm not that scientific, but it seems like that they do that, for their spiritual handlers, and maybe they're feeding on it. I don't know. Maybe, who knows? Maybe they're just condemning that individual. There were some comments earlier where they're the slaves and they're the ones being tricked. I would agree with that. And so, but they own them at that point, don't they? Once they start giving these, once they start obeying these spiritual handlers and doing these evil things, it's almost like they're giving themselves over for ownership, aren't they?
I would say. I mean, it sounds like it, especially if it's like a spiritual contract. Well, then you got
Right.
to hold up your end of the deal, and if you're not doing it, well, it sounds like there's got to be a price to pay.
Right, because people, the targets will
Mhm.
speculate: is there like a disinformation? Why did my family turn against me? What did they really hate me now? Is it a disinformation campaign, or is it blackmail in a type of reward based system? You don't know. You don't know, because sometimes it seems like there's money getting thrown around in this whole thing.
Yeah, there's some sort of incentive, regardless. I don't know what it is, whether it's going to be on a spiritual level or on a materialistic level. There is some sort of incentive that's being gained by these individuals. I mean, because otherwise, why would you be doing it just for the kicks? And even at
Yeah,
that,
there's
there's an
more.
incentive for that. There's an incentive for that too, because obviously their self-esteem is lacking, so they feel better by doing that to other people.
It's a multifaceted scenario. Absolutely.
Agreed. Agreed. Hmm.
Would you like to
Cool.
add anything else before we let in the next guest?
Just continue to stay strong despite how hectic it's starting to get, guys. I know it's been getting worse ever since I would say since 2020. Ever since then, things have just progressively been getting worse, and it's going to progressively keep getting worse. So just do what you got to do to stay strong. And my gut feeling is, and I'm just putting this out there, take it or leave it. I think it'd be a good idea if people try to store up at least at the very minimum 30 days worth of food and water and whatever necessary supplies you think you're gonna need. Um, I just got a feeling something's about to be around the corner that could have a little shutdown here.
Interesting. A lot of people have been talking about another pandemic, and that what we experienced was nothing but a run through. And I would agree that something is coming. And we don't know when, though. And there was a lot of things that were disclosed, and hopefully that is going to deter it as much as possible. Thanks for coming in, and we'd love to have
Absolutely.
you again.
Thanks
God
again.
bless
You guys have
you.
a good night. Stay
Yeah,
strong, everyone. God bless.
God bless. And we do have one of our favorite guests again tonight, Buck. Welcome to the live stream. Well,
Hey,
you got to turn off
doctor.
your cam, dude. Turn off
Hey,
your
man.
cam. Turn off the
Oh, it's
cam.
called the king. Oh, sorry. Okay.
Yeah, turn off the cam.
Okay. Sorry about that. All right, there you go. Sorry about that. I didn't know that
John,
was a rule.
you had sunglasses on. We'll let it go for a second.
Okay, I didn't know that was a rule. I would have not done that if I.
No, how are you tonight?
Well, a little nervous because I don't want to break rules here. You know what I'm saying?
No, you're fine.
But I want to give a little tip for the TI community, especially when encountering people who might not have, for whatever reason, might not have their like the best interest or whatever the person, whatever. But I'm just saying that, like, even though these people are slaves and they're kind of like they're trapped, and we should pray for them anyway. But the point I'm trying to make is that when somebody asks you how are you, like, it's always like, how I said, like, I'm a little nervous because if I say, like, I'm doing good, man, and I'm feeling nervous, like, in one level it might be true that I might be doing good in a sense, but like if I don't like kind of come out and say what I'm maybe like with one word how I'm feeling, like I might be embellishing a little bit. And not from a moral standpoint from a moral standpoint, it's not really that huge of a problem because I mean people talk about Santa Claus like like it's like it's not a big deal. But the problem with either any small bit of deception that I might say, which I used to be guilty of all the time, I used to do that kind of thing a lot, is that it opens me up for attack.
Okay.
It opens me up for attack.
Well, that'd almost be an attack to begin with because they're coming up and because you didn't really reference who in other words, is it a stranger? Is it a coworker? Is it someone else? I mean, could you be a little more specific?
Yes, sir. I'm sorry. Yes, sir. It's about everyday life in a general sense.
No, I get what you're saying because I've seen that with perps. They're like, oh, how you doing? And they'll come up, and it's like you said, it's an engagement at that point.
Usually, I found that they ask a person, "How you doing?" when they know that your energy levels are like at the lowest or at the
yes,
most,
exactly.
you know
That's what I'm getting at. Yeah, they're attacking you at that point. Absolutely.
Yeah, but and the thing that most people want to do is say, "Oh, I'm doing great. I'm doing good." But that's a problem because once you say I'm doing good when you're not feeling good, like if I say, "Hey, I'm feeling great, but I'm feeling nervous,"
they want to suck the last drop of energy out of you when you're trying to pretend like everything's okay. Basically, is what you're saying.
That's when, yes, sir. That's when gang stalking goes to the next crust level. It turns into like human trafficking or something worse. There's levels of gradations of slavery, and so what they want to do is, they want to bring it to that other level for their commission or whatever, like the last guest was talking about, I guess. But like the thing of it is like, I found they have biotelemetry, the telemetry in the body, like Jose Rodriguez Delgado created back in the 60s, I think it was. And then that technology has been growing since then, but they know what's going on with the heart rate, the galvanic skin response. They got like readouts for all that stuff on the screens, I'm sure of it, but they don't tell them everything, but the AI systems know this.
Interesting.
But the quantum AI that governs the whole thing. So what happens is that they'll get the word, like, ask him how he's doing, right? Because if he says, "Oh, I'm doing good," and he lies, that's open him up for more tragedy later.
Well, plus they're forcing you to engage with the last little bit of energy that you have in a maybe a harsh scenario where you're being harassed and dysregulated, and it's like now you got to play even. You got to pretend, and that's going to take the last of your energy, and they'll just keep coming from everywhere.
Not necessarily.
Well, that's what I've seen.
Well, what I've seen, not for me, yes, sir. For what I've seen is that if I'm just honest. If I feel scared or intimidated.
Well, yeah, won't they just ask you more questions and say, "Well, I don't know if I'm having." Oh, you're not having it. Tell me a little bit more, and then they'll kind of suck you into that conversation. Won't they?
Yeah, that's true too. I hear that. That's true too. Yeah, because I hear that. Yeah.
But no, I get what you're saying. That does apply to this because that really does actually because they will do that, and like you're the Hollywood targeted individual. Where you got to either pretend like everything's okay or you got to pretend like something because how much of the interaction that you're having, especially with these individuals, none of it's legitimate. And so
some of it is.
Well,
maybe
in
a
what
little
way?
Bit here and there.
In what way?
Maybe a little kernel here and there.
But not the perp.
Right.
The perps, it's always illegitimate, but they're trying to pretend like it's normal, right?
Well, I would say that with any element of truth, there's a whole lot of falsehood. Maybe. Is that true?
Well, who are you? There's people out there that are going to interact with you that don't have an ulterior motive, but you don't have to worry about that.
Well, yeah, like if they want you to believe something that's false, they'll tell you all these things that are true first. And can tell you.
Oh, you're talking about the art of deception. I see.
I didn't know what you meant.
Okay, no, I'm talking about people sucking the life out of you with illegitimate reactions or situations and interactions with you that are not genuine. A lot of targets will deal with that. Like you said, somebody comes up and they want to know how you're doing, but as you illustrated, they already know how you're doing, and they're just trying to harass you, right? They know they know you've been weakened. They know you're on your last leg, and they want you to try to pretend like everything's okay, just to suck the last drop of energy out of you.
Well, by the one I pray, you know how loved you truly are, because that's the antidote to this whole weaponization of the energy systems. Is that we're connected to the Holy One of Heaven, and that's how we get our energy. So they can keep taking, but we keep getting more.
Well, yeah, but at the same time, it can be very vexing. There's no doubt about that. And if you're dealing with heavy harassment, I've seen it. Usually, it's like when targets will deal with that hunt down or that onslaught. That's really when those guys come in like that because it's almost sarcastic. The target has been dealing with noise campaigns or break-ins, or maybe even covert drugging and poisoning, and then all of a sudden you're supposed to pretend like everything's okay.
But I
And,
was
and if you don't, then they're going to come in and start probing and look for information or try to discredit you or draw you out or something else.
Yes, sir. I was dogpiled by a bunch of cops at one point, and so I was walking away from, I guess it was a police officer, and I didn't know if he was a real police officer. And my car was pulled over because apparently they had, I guess there was some kind of flag or something on my license, and they knew I was driving without insurance for a few days, I guess it was. So they took in my car. It was a brand new car. It was a nice car. It was like a Corolla, I think it was, like a new Corolla. And they took that and they dogpiled me, a bunch of them. They didn't taser me, thank goodness, but they almost did. But they dogpiled me, and then they put the cuffs on me, and then they took me away to like some kind of jail cell somewhere, a prison system. And so I was there for a little bit. I had a chip on me that didn't get registered when I went through the scanners somehow. I don't know how it didn't get registered, but I brought it up to their attention, I think at one point, and then they tried to inject me with something.
Wait a minute. You were at a detention facility? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, because I didn't have insurance for my car.
Okay, so they what do you mean they tried to inject you?
Well, they wanted me to sign paperwork that I could get injections or something. And then so I guess I was like at the point where I told them I didn't want injections and I don't really want to accept them. But when I got back home, my hands were vibrating when I put them on top of my computer.
My God,
my hands would like vibrate. Like they got telemetry, nanotech in them now, and they're like humming a tune or something. When I got home, yeah, it was wild. And I was in front of the judge, and the judge was like, "Did you do anything wrong?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, have I ever jaywalked?" And I didn't know what to say, so I just, I told her what I could. But, I mean, when the cop left the place, he was like, something about like bunches of cops dying and stuff. I'm like, what? What level are you talking about, man?
Did you get charged with any specific crime at this interaction you're talking about?
Well, from what I understood, it was a crime where I was somehow, I think I was driving without insurance.
Okay, but you got dogpiled by a bunch of police. Why did they? What happened on that? That's interesting because normally break that down a little bit.
So I pulled. Okay, the light went off. I pulled my car. I think I was parked somewhere, and the light went off behind me. Then I pulled off and pulled into the adjacent parking lot, right? And I got out of my car, and then it's like the guy pulled out, and he's like, and I called my mother, right? And I said, "Hey, Mom, this guy's got a gun. I don't know if he's a police officer, and what should I do?"
So you didn't want to deal with him, and you had the window up. Is that correct?
No, I got out of my car, and then he was talking to me or something.
Okay.
I called my mother and said, "Hey, like, I think this guy might be either a fake police officer, or I don't really know if he's real or not." I mean, anybody could have a gun.
Okay, no, I get it. I get it. Yeah.
So I walked away from the guy, and I was like, "Okay, would you leave me alone, please," or something like that. And then he kept following me, and then he called his associates, and then they all dogpiled me.
So you were being detained, but you weren't aware that you were being detained.
Well, it wasn't
by a lawful authority, and you walked away not understanding what was going on, and they dogpiled you basically.
Well, I didn't know if it was a real police officer, and I walked away from it. And I can't remember the whole details. I had some other reason why I was walking away from it. I don't remember what it was.
Okay, all right, never mind.
But they put me in detention for a little while for that one.
Okay, so you had an experience there.
Maryland.
And now I don't know if I remember this correctly or not. Like I said, I've watched some of your videos, and I remember that it goes all the way back to I think 2020. But did you? And I can't remember if I'm correct. Did you get a false diagnosis in the process of your harassment?
Well, I got a diagnosis at one point, and I tried to be as honest as I could. But here's the deal: I was under duress of being put out on the street because somebody was going to throw me out of the house.
Okay.
And the thing of it was, I talked to the guy, and I was like, he asked me questions, and from my best intent, I told the truth. Like, he asked me, "Do you hear voices?" I said, "Yeah, I do." Okay, but
you were just being honest, in other words, right?
I was being honest.
Yeah.
But the thing was, I wasn't really elaborating and saying, "Look, I don't know. I don't really remember what happened too much because it's been so long ago." But I don't think, like, here's the deal. Like, if he were to give, like, okay, so if he were to say, like, "Do you hear voices?" and I would say, "Yeah," right? I don't think I was really that strong to tell them that, look, they're really nice and they don't bug me at all. Like there's kinds out there that do bug people, and I don't think I was really clear about that maybe, but he didn't really ask. So I wasn't, it was like that kind of situation. You know what I mean?
Well, so
Like,
you were, hold on. So you said, okay, so you're being evaluated by a professional or,
yeah,
okay.
yeah,
Was it a psychiatrist?
yeah. I was in this facility.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
I went. Well, I went there on my. I went there on my own accord because I was
Okay.
like, I was going to be homeless potentially, and so I talked. So I was like, hey, look.
So that was it was a type it was almost like a pack team interview or something that had to be done for you in order to get assistance. Is that correct?
In matter of speaking, see, I knew I was
Evaluation. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that was basically what I'm trying to get to, but it wasn't like I was brought there in a white van or something.
No.
Me and a friend at the time.
You were trying to get assistance, and they gave you an evaluation, right?
I think that's probably the gist of it. I think so.
Okay.
And so,
okay.
yeah, I think that's probably the gist. But I mean, like I'd been homeless before, and people didn't really give me answers why, I guess. But I mean, I told the guy, look, I think I told him something like I put glue in your roommate's shampoo, and he got mad at that. Because here's the deal. She left a dime on the toilet seat, right? And I'm like, okay, well, what does this mean, right? And this is when I didn't know about gang stalking, right? And I was thinking, oh, well, why are these cars driving around the neighborhood when I get home? There's like a whole circle of cars, just like the other person, Dr. What's her name? I can't remember her name.
Well, but, don't mention it. Don't mention it.
Oh, yes. Thank you for reminder. Yes, sir. Okay. Understood. Okay. Sorry, God. Okay. Sorry, Dr. De Facto. I won't have it again. I'll try I'll remind me, God. Remind
You're fine. Your roommates kicked you out because of this interaction. Is that correct?
Yeah. She left a dime somewhere, and I thought it was a hint or a signal. And I was like,
okay, all right.
I was like, my wit's end at that point, right? And in some sense, I'm a musician. I'm an artist.
In some sense, he said. She left a dime. That's all.
You got I put some glue in her shampoo. I put some glue in her shampoo, right?
Yeah.
And then I told the landlord, and he got mad. So
okay. So you were in a bit of a situation, and you got false diagnosis. Did they ever try to put you on force medicate you or anything like that?
I don't know if it was a false diagnosis or not, but per their
what do you mean you don't know if it was a false diagnosis?
Well, I've been had diagnoses all my different points of my life, man. Like
what did they okay, hold on.
I don't mind.
Hold on. What did they diagnose you with?
I guess I don't mind sharing, but I'd rather not share publicly like this.
You don't have to, but it was a mental disorder. We don't have to name what it was. Is that correct?
It was psychiatric disorder or whatever.
Right, a psychiatric disorder.
I don't really talk about it.
Now, hold on. Because you said you were hearing voices and you were just telling the truth. Is that correct?
I was hearing voices. But the real concern I was there was because I was homeless.
Right. That's how the whole thing got lit off. Exactly.
Yeah. That was the real reason I was there, I think.
So, okay.
Yeah.
So have you taken any medication at all along the process of this?
I'm still on medication now.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. But okay, hold on. So, but that's completely separate from what you're talking about concerning your organized stalking and harassment, and it's none of my business. But I would imagine that anyone dealing with this is probably pretty stressed out. So is that something that helps you deal with the stress?
Smoking cannabis and then medication. Here's my deal.
Hold on. We're not giving any medical advice. I asked you a specific question. Does it help you deal with stress? And you answered honestly. I'm just saying, let's not go into promoting anything. We don't have to name the medication or other things. But
if I'm going to have a nice job, right, a cushy office job doing computer design work, I better have medications in my system, right?
Okay, is that to help you deal with the stress?
To release stress.
Okay, because you mentioned that. Okay, here's my point. Last night, I do believe you said that you are in isolation still, but the stalking and harassment has stopped. But the isolation, that's torment. That's a lot of tormentative stuff too. And I'd love to have you in here so that you can interact with us because I know how it is to be isolated. Okay, I get it, and I appreciate you coming in. But the thing is that you said the stalking had stopped. So, and the question you asked me last night had to do with, as a lot of people would say that, why are you being isolated?
LSD.
Well, you've been isolated by all the stalking and harassment, and you haven't healed from that yet because there's no stalking for 2 years. Usually, it takes someone at least 3 years to come out of that. How are you doing at this point, comparatively speaking, to when at that time the stalking or the harassment or whatever you were dealing with stopped, and the 2 years now have gone by? Has there been any healing that you've experienced in that time period?
Well, the time period was 2007 when that first started.
Well, yeah, but you said for 2 years now you haven't been aggressively stalked and harassed, but you're still isolated. Is that correct?
It's a rough estimate.
Okay. So is it getting better? Is it getting a little bit better?
Well, it's like weeding a garden. If you don't keep the upkeep, the weeds will come back.
Okay. What is the difference? Because it seems like you're still thinking about these things. Are you still hearing V2K or anything like that, or is it just echoes?
No, sir. I don't hear V2K.
Okay. So it's just like echoes of all that stuff that happened to you, basically.
Not really. I mean, there's other dimensions to this. There's other dimensions to this that I think we haven't really touched on yet. So basically, you know how there's an angelic or holy angelic kingdom of angelic realm, with the interfaces with the creator of the universe, right?
Okay, hold on, Buck. Before we go into that, I believe you, and we're going to do that. But you still didn't answer my question, dude.
I'm trying to explain it, actually.
Please.
Okay. So
have you experienced? Hold on. Have you experienced any healing at all in the last 2 years that your stalking has calmed down? People need to know this whole thing.
Obviously, yeah.
Oh, so that's all I asked. Okay. Please, I'm trying to work with you, sir. Okay.
Well, I mean, okay. I mean, I maybe I'm just too complex sometimes. Sometimes I don't feel like I get the idea that I want to say across, and so. Well,
you're thinking too much about something that you want to say rather than interacting with me. Okay.
It's just my natural way, I guess.
That's okay. So because that's very important, because there are a lot of targets out there, and I've had this happen to me. A lot of the stuff that happens to targets, it changes just like what you're dealing with, and because then you move in through that progression, you start to kind of heal, you start to expect logic, you start to expect people to act normal again, and right now it seems to be kind of semi-normal for you, and am I correct?
Well, we gotta. I don't want to say this.
That was a basic question, brother, man.
It's a sensitive topic, man. Give me a second to get myself together. Okay?
No, that's okay. Okay, so here's my point.
We got to notice. Okay.
Okay, hold on. I don't want to say it.
I got to notice.
No, but you said it stopped, so you haven't been dealing with that, and so you're starting to here's what happens to a lot of targets.
It's a consolidation of effect, sir.
Okay. Well, yeah, I get it. No, it's still there. I get it. Okay.
It's just they wait for the one moment to go after me with like a car accident or something.
Okay. But are you okay? Are you starting to think about trying to live a normal life again? Has that started to come into your framework at this point?
Not yet. No. I got to do one more thing first. I got to do one more thing.
I'm trying to clarify this. A lot of targets are concerned about that because they don't know if they're ever going to heal again. And I've told people that you get within the first 3 to 5 years, because here's the point, Buck. This is gaslighting. And a lot of targets are gonna internalize this whole thing after, because you're a good example. because for 2 years now, you're still isolated and you're still dealing with the repercussions, as you've mentioned. But we'll just assume that you start trying to break out of that whole thing and you experience paranoia or, the sequelae of apprehension, so on and so forth. And then people are start, telling you that there's something wrong with you. But really, that's not true, is it? Because it's really hard to get over all that stuff, isn't it, Buck? Isn't it?
I don't know how to answer your question with like 1 or 2 words, man.
Well, it's not a binary. I'm not trying to throw a binary question at you.
There's no simple answer to that question, bro.
There is a simple answer. The simple answer is that after experiencing stalking and harassment, you're going to be paranoid. Okay, and it takes time to heal. Okay, and the gaslighting is that it's your problem now. You get me? Are you following?
I don't understand. I don't consent to being gaslit.
But if someone were to tell you that your lack of progress is because of your inability to deal with it, that would be gaslighting. Is that correct?
I don't understand the depth of that question.
Because you were stalked and harassed, and you said for 2 years it stopped, but you're still isolated, which means you're still experiencing the sequelae of the paranoia and the harassment, which means it's still not your fault, but they would try to gaslight you and make you internalize it to believe it was.
Maybe I don't have the technical understanding you do, but I don't feel like I understand what you're even asking me, to be honest with you.
Because people want to heal, Buck, and you've experienced something and articulated and come into this live stream many times and said that your stalking has slowed down. And I asked a simple question.
It has.
And that simple question was, have you experienced a type of healing?
Yes.
Through that? Okay, that's all I asked.
Okay, I didn't know. I'm sorry. I apologize. I didn't know. You're right. Okay, if that's all you're asking me, yes, I have. I have. I've been spent immense healing, actually. Immense healing. Yeah.
What? Okay, so what happens if it starts again? What are you going to do?
Dig up the weeds, man. Get out the spade and dig up the weeds, bro.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we are at the end of the show, and I'd like to have you in again. I enjoy you as a guest, and I understand. I'm isolated, just like you, and I think it's for the exact same reasons. And I appreciate your testimony very much.
Thanks,
And
man.
yes,
I like you, man. You're a good guy. I like being.
Yeah, I could hang out with you. I really do enjoy your.
Let's
I
all
enjoy
get
your
a beer
company.
somewhere, bro.
No, I do. I enjoy your company, and I look forward to having you on as much as you come in.
Thank you.
But just please try to respect the rules.
Thank you.
And
the rules are to not share my face, do not share my channel, do not share any other channels, no cussing and swearing, and what else?
And no promoting of any other religions but Christianity.
Christianity, right?
That's correct. That's correct.
Right, cool.
Okay,
So,
glad to have you in, and I'm going to take you off the stage. And is there anything else you'd like to say before we go?
Thank you very much, and may God be with every one of you.
Oh, amen. Thank you very much, Buck. Thank you. Glad to have you in. As usual, a very regular and vocal interacting viewer. And there's got to be some people out there that just haven't come in, and I'd like to encourage individuals to do that. We're going to continue to do these. And I'd like to thank all of our moderators, and I'd like to thank every and each targeted individual out there who has helped support me in the channel. If you have any ideas for future videos or live streams, please let me know in the comment section. God bless. Be good to yourselves. Be safe.